My name is Melissa Carter. I'm 27 years old, and the strange thing about the moment your life begins to split into two versions, the before and the after, is that it doesn't sound like a tragedy when it starts. There's no thunder, no warning, no dramatic pause where your body braces for impact. Sometimes, it looks like a normal morning. A quiet apartment, soft light slipping through the blinds, the hum of the coffee maker filling the silence, while the man you love is still asleep in the next room, his arm stretched across your side of the bed, even in sleep, like he needs to make sure you're still there. It looks like a life you built carefully, deliberately, piece by piece. And for a long time, I thought that meant it was real. I was 19 when I was diagnosed with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, a clinical name for something that quietly rearranges your entire relationship with your own body. It means your hormones don't listen. Your metabolism doesn't cooperate. Your reflection becomes unpredictable. I gain weight even when I eat like I'm supposed to. I bloat so badly some days that I avoid mirrors altogether. There are mornings when I wake up exhausted before the day even begins, like my body spent the entire night fighting something I can't see. And no matter what I tried, diets, workouts, medication, supplements, therapy, my body never became the version people said it should be. It just remained mine. And for a long time, that felt like failure. I was 22 when I found the corset, not the kind people wear for fashion, not the soft, forgiving kind, the real kind.
Steel-boned, tightly laced, unapologetically restrictive.
The first time I put it on, I didn't cry because it hurt. I cried because it worked. For the first time in years, I looked in the mirror and I recognized the girl staring back at me. Not perfect, but acceptable. Someone who could be chosen. Someone who could be loved. I know how that sounds. Trust me, I've had enough therapy sessions to understand the psychology behind it. Internalized shame, conditioned beauty standards, the illusion of control. But understanding something in your mind is very different from feeling it settle into your bones. The corset didn't just change my shape, it changed my life. It became my armor. I wore it everywhere. Under work clothes, under dresses, under oversized sweaters and soft pajamas. I learned how to move in it, how to sit without revealing it, how to breathe. Just enough. No one knew. Not my friends, not my family, not even the man who would eventually tell me he loved me. I met Ryan Brooks when I was 23. By then, I had perfected the illusion. I knew exactly which fabrics concealed the lines, which angles hid the structure, which movements kept everything in place. He never saw my real body, not once. He saw the version I built, the curated version, the controlled version, the version I believed someone like him could love. And he did. At least, I thought he did. Ryan was easy to love. He was attentive in the beginning, warm, funny in a way that felt effortless. He talked about the future like it was something we were already stepping into together. Marriage, kids, a house that felt like ours. And I let myself believe him. We moved in together after a year. Got a dog, built routines, shared quiet mornings and late-night conversations that made everything feel stable.
Real.
But there was always a voice in the back of my mind.
Soft. Persistent.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know what you really look like. I ignored it. Told myself everyone edits themselves a little. Makeup, flattering clothes, carefully chosen angles. I wasn't doing anything different, right? Except my version of editing came with consequences. The corset got tighter over the years. My symptoms got worse. My body fluctuated more. So I adjusted, pulled the laces tighter, held my breath a little longer. Some nights when I finally took it off, my skin was marked with deep red lines, bruises that bloomed slowly over days, indentations that didn't fully disappear. But I told myself it was worth it. Because the alternative was him seeing me, really seeing me, and deciding I wasn't enough. 3 months ago, it happened anyway. I got sick, the kind of sick that strips everything down to survival.
Food poisoning.
I was on the bathroom floor, shaking, sweating, barely conscious. I couldn't think, couldn't move, couldn't maintain the version of myself I'd spent years perfecting. Ryan took care of me. He changed my clothes, helped me into bed, and for the first time in our entire relationship, he saw me without the corset. I didn't notice his reaction that night. I was too far gone. But the next morning, I felt it. Not something he said. Something quieter.
A shift.
He looked at me differently, just for a second. A flicker. Like his eyes were trying to process something that didn't match the version of me he knew. There was no confrontation, no questions, no accusations, but something had changed, and we both knew it, even if neither of us said it out loud. Over the next few weeks, I tightened the corset more than I ever had before, as if I could erase what he saw, as if I could rewind that moment, undo it, fix it. But something had already cracked, and no amount of pressure, no amount of compression could hold it together anymore. After that night, intimacy changed first. It didn't disappear all at once. That would have been easier to name. Instead, it faded in small, humiliating ways. Ryan said he was tired. Work was stressful. He had a headache. He wasn't in the mood. And every time he said it lightly, casually, as if nothing underneath it was breaking me open. But I knew. Or maybe I didn't know in words yet. Maybe I only knew in the way a woman knows when love has shifted half an inch away from her and is waiting to see whether she notices. I noticed the way he stopped reaching for me in the kitchen. The way his eyes skimmed over me now, not lingering, not softening. The way silence started sitting between us at night, like a third presence in bed. So I did what I had always done when fear found me. I adapted. I pulled the laces tighter. I wore the corset longer. I told myself that if I could just become that acceptable version again, perfectly, consistently, without cracks, then whatever had shifted would settle back into place. But fear has a smell to it, and once it enters a relationship, everything starts to carry it, even tenderness, even hope. A few weeks later, we were in bed together for the first time in a while, and I remember feeling relieved, pathetically relieved, like maybe this meant I had imagined the distance. Maybe this meant we were going back to normal. Maybe this meant I was still wanted. I started taking off my clothes, slowly, carefully. The corset was still on, of course. It was always on. Ryan reached for me, then stopped. Can you keep it on? At first, I didn't understand him. Keep what on? He glanced at my waist, like he was embarrassed by his own words. The corset. Can you just keep it on? Everything inside me went still. I stared at him, certain I had heard wrong. Ryan, I can't. He let out a breath, already impatient, already acting like I was making this difficult. Just for this. It hurts, I said. I can barely breathe in it. I know. He said it so casually, those two words, I know, as if my pain was already part of the negotiation. My doctor told me to stop wearing it so much. I know, Mel. I'm just saying, can you keep it on this time? I waited for him to smile, to say he was joking, to realize what he was asking, but he didn't. His face stayed serious, avoidant, annoyingly calm. Why? I asked. He looked away, and that was the moment before the real wound. The half second when some part of me still believed there was a version of this conversation I could survive intact. Then he said, I'm just more attracted to you when you're wearing it. The room didn't get louder. It got quieter. So quiet, I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. You're saying you're not attracted to my real body. That's not what I said. That is exactly what you said. He rubbed his face like I was exhausting him. No, I said I'm more attracted when you wear it. That's different. Different. He said it like that word could save him, like grammar could soften cruelty. I'm not saying I'm not attracted to you at all, he added. I'm just saying I have preferences. Everybody has preferences. I sat there, in our bed, in the apartment we had made into a life, and felt something inside me split cleanly in two. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, devastating tear. He reached for my arm again. Come on, he said. Don't make this a big thing. Not a big thing. The pressure around my ribs, the bruises on my skin, the nights I lay awake because my body felt like it had been wrapped in punishment. Not a big thing. I got out of bed without saying anything, walked to the bathroom, locked the door. Then I sat on the cold tile floor with my hand pressed against my sternum, trying to take a full breath and failing. I don't know how long I stayed there, long enough for the mirror to fog at the edges from the shower I hadn't turned on. Long enough to realize I was shaking. Long enough to hear his words replay in my head until they started sounding less like a sentence and more like a verdict. I'm just more attracted to you when you're wearing it. It has a strange effect on you when someone you love names the condition for your desirability. You stop hearing your body as your own. You start hearing it as a problem to manage,
An obstacle. A negotiation.
a thing standing between you and being chosen. For the next week, I didn't take the corset off, not once, not to sleep, not to rest. Not even when the ache became a steady, throbbing presence under my skin. I knew it was dangerous. Knew it in the detached way people know cigarettes kill, or exhaustion wrecks the body. But every time my fingers reached for the laces, I heard his voice. And every time I imagined loosening them, another thought came right behind it. If you take this off, he leaves. If you take this off, he sees you. If he sees you, you lose everything. So I kept it on. The pain changed after a while. It stopped being sharp. It became a constant pressure, dull and crushing, like my own body was folding in on itself. Sometimes the room tilted when I stood up too fast. Sometimes I had to lean against the kitchen counter until the dizziness passed. Sometimes I caught myself taking shallow little breaths because anything deeper hurt too much. But Ryan acted like nothing had happened. He kissed me goodbye in the morning, texted me during the day, asked what I wanted for dinner. He was sweet again, gentle again, normal again, as long as I stayed compressed, as long as I stayed inside the shape he preferred. 2 nights later, we had sex again. I kept the corset on, just like he wanted. The entire time, I focused on not making a sound that sounded like pain. I kept my face turned slightly away, so he wouldn't see the tears gathering in my eyes. Not dramatic tears, just the kind your body produces when it understands something your mind is still fighting. Afterward, he kissed my shoulder and said, "That was nice." Then he rolled over and fell asleep. I stayed awake for hours. The room was dark, except for the blue light from the street leaking through the blinds. My ribs ached. My stomach felt tight and nauseous. And all I could think was, is this what love turns into when you're not enough as you are? Is this how women disappear? Not in one giant moment, but in tiny acts of self-erasure, repeated so often they begin to look normal. The next day, I tried to talk to him again, not because I believed he would suddenly understand, but because some part of me was still desperate to be reassured that I wasn't hearing him correctly, that there was still softness under his honesty, that he didn't mean what he meant. We were in the kitchen. He was rinsing a mug. I was standing there with one hand pressed lightly to my side because my ribs had started hurting even when I was still. "I can't keep doing this," I said. He didn't turn around. "Doing what?" "The corset, wearing it all the time. It's hurting me," he sighed, like the conversation itself inconvenienced him. "Mel, I'm not doing anything wrong." That sentence, so clean, so practiced. "I'm not forcing you. I'm just telling you what I prefer." I stared at him. "You know it hurts me." He shrugged with one shoulder. "You don't have to wear it if you don't want to. But if I don't, what happens to us?" That made him pause. He turned off the faucet, dried his hands slowly, and then shrugged again. Actually shrugged. "I don't know. We'd have to figure it out." The cruelty of that almost took my breath faster than the corset did. Not even a denial. Not even a lie generous enough to comfort me. Just uncertainty placed at my feet like a punishment. "But I can't promise I'll be attracted to you the same way," he added. "I'm just being honest." There was that word again. Honest. He wore it like armor, as if honesty transformed harm into virtue, as if saying something cruel plainly made it noble. "Ryan, I have PCOS," I said. "I can't control my weight the way you think I should. I've tried everything." "I know," he said, with that same maddening calm. "And I'm not saying you have to be skinny." No, he was saying something meaner than that. He was saying I had to be modified. "I'm just saying the corset helps," he continued. "It makes you look better." Better. Better than what? Better than my real body. Better than the body that had carried me through years of pain and hormone chaos and humiliation. Better than the body that had still somehow found the courage to love him. I wanted to scream. Wanted to throw the mug in his hand against the wall, just to hear something break outside of me for once. But I didn't. I nodded, went into the bathroom, and tightened the corset again, because that's the part nobody talks about. How humiliation can make you obedient. How shame can make you complicit in your own undoing. By the time my doctor's appointment came around, I was already exhausted enough to feel unreal. It was supposed to be routine, a standard checkup, nothing dramatic. But when she examined me, She went quiet.
Doctors have a particular kind of silence when they've moved from curiosity to concern.
She looked at the bruising along my sides, at the deep grooves etched into my skin, at the way I flinched when she pressed near my lower ribs. "How long have you been wearing compression garments like this?" "A few months," I lied. She looked at me for one beat too long, then said very gently, "Melissa, these marks are not from a few months." My throat tightened. She put the chart down. "These are signs of long-term damage." The room felt suddenly too bright. "You have stress fractures in your ribs," she said. "Your torso has been under repeated pressure for years. This kind of compression can affect breathing, circulation, and organ position. You need to stop." I just stared at her. I think some part of me had expected concern, maybe a warning, but not that. Not the solid, irreversible weight of medical language turning my private suffering into fact. "Is there a reason you feel you need to wear these?" she asked. And without planning to, I answered truthfully. "My boyfriend prefers me in them." Something changed in her face then. Not shock. Not exactly.
Recognition.
The kind that scared me more than judgment would have. "Your boyfriend," she repeated carefully, "prefers you to continue doing something that is physically damaging your body." When she said it that way, stripped of romance and context and all the soft language I had been using to protect him, it sounded insane. "He's not forcing me," I said quickly. "I can stop whenever I want." She held my gaze. "Can you?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know, or worse, because I did. She folded her hands together and spoke more firmly this time. "What you're describing is not just a preference. He is attaching affection and attraction to a behavior that is harming you. That can become coercive very quickly."
Coercive.
I had never used that word for Ryan, never even let it drift near him in my mind. He wasn't violent. He didn't scream. He didn't isolate me, or control my bank account, or leave bruises on purpose. He just preferred a version of me that required pain. And suddenly, that just felt like a different kind of violence. I left the appointment with discharge papers in my bag, and that word lodged somewhere behind my ribs.
Coercive.
It followed me through the parking lot, into the car, up the elevator, back into the apartment, where Ryan's shoes were by the door, and our dog lifted his head sleepily from the couch, and everything looked unbearably ordinary. I stood in the entryway for a long time, one hand resting over the hard curve of the corset beneath my sweater, and for the first time, I asked myself a question I had been avoiding for years. Where do his preferences end? And where does my dignity begin? The word coercion didn't leave me alone. It followed me into sleep, when I managed to sleep at all. It lingered in the quiet spaces between thoughts. It echoed in my chest every time I tightened the laces just a little more, even when my hands were already trembling.
Coercion.
It didn't sound like my life. It sounded like something obvious, something extreme, something that happened to other women, women who were trapped, women who couldn't leave. Not someone like me. Not someone who could still walk out the front door, go to work, smile at coworkers, text her boyfriend good morning like everything was fine. Except I couldn't remember the last time anything actually felt fine. 3 days after the appointment, I posted my story online. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I needed someone, anyone, outside of my own head to tell me what was real. Maybe I needed to hear a version of the truth that didn't come from Ryan. The response was immediate.
Overwhelming.
Strangers, hundreds of them, reading my words, dissecting my life, offering opinions I wasn't ready to hear. A lot of them said the same thing. "This is abuse. Leave him." I hated those comments at first. Closed the app. Opened it again. Read them anyway, because they didn't fit the version of Ryan I had built in my mind. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't angry. He didn't scream or slam doors or make threats. He just told the truth. Didn't that count for something? Didn't honesty mean he respected me? But then, one comment stayed. It didn't accuse. It didn't shout. It just said, if he loved you, he'd be worried about your ribs, not his attraction. I read that sentence over and over again, until it stopped feeling like someone else's opinion and started feeling like something I already knew. 2 days later, I tried again. A real conversation this time. Not emotional, not reactive, just clear. Ryan was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone. I stood in front of him, hands clasped together because I didn't trust them not to shake. My doctor said I have fractures in my ribs. He looked up. Concern flickered across his face. Brief, almost automatic. That sounds serious. It is, I said. She said the compression is damaging my body, my organs, my breathing, everything. He nodded slowly. For a moment, I let myself hope. For a moment, I thought this might be the turning point. Then he leaned back into the couch and sighed. Look, I'm sorry you're in pain, but a lot of women wear shapewear. Just like that, the hope collapsed. My mom wears shapewear, he added. My sister does too. It's not like I'm asking you to do something crazy. I stared at him. I have fractures in my ribs, and I'm saying you're being a little dramatic about it.
Dramatic.
The word landed heavier than anything else, because it didn't just dismiss my pain. It reframed it, turned it into exaggeration, into weakness, into something inconvenient he could brush aside. I swallowed hard. The doctor used the word coercion. Ryan blinked. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. Coercion? Seriously? It means— I know what it means, he cut in, and that's ridiculous. He sat forward now, his tone sharpening. Mel, I'm not holding a gun to your head. I'm not forcing you to do anything. You can wear whatever you want. But you said— I said what I'm attracted to, he interrupted again. That's not a crime. That's honesty. There it was again, his shield, his favorite word.
Honesty.
If you don't like it, he continued, that's your problem, not mine. I'm not the bad guy for having standards. Standards. The word changed this time. It wasn't preferences anymore. It was something stricter, something colder, something that sounded like a rule I had already failed. You know what? He added, shaking his head. This is exactly the problem. I try to be honest with you, and you turn me into some kind of villain. I felt something inside me go very still, because suddenly, I saw it. The pattern. The way every conversation bent back toward his comfort, his logic, his version of reality. I never asked you to hide who you are, he said. And that was the sentence that broke something open. Because he was right. He hadn't asked. He had never noticed. 4 years together. 4 years of me waking up early to dress before he woke. 4 years of changing in the bathroom with the door locked. 4 years of carefully managing angles, lighting, distance, and he had never once asked why, never once been curious enough to see me, or maybe he just didn't want to. He stormed off after that, slept on the couch, and I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling, the corset digging into my ribs like a reminder I couldn't ignore. I cried quietly, not because of what he said, but because I finally understood it. The next day, my sister, Dana Carter, came over. She wasn't supposed to. It wasn't planned. But Dana has always had this instinct. Like she can feel when something in my life is unraveling before I say a word. She took one look at me and frowned. What's going on with you? She asked, setting her bag down. You look exhausted. I'm fine, I said automatically. She raised an eyebrow. No, you're not. Talk to me. I tried to deflect. Blamed work. Said I wasn't sleeping well. She didn't buy it. Not even a little. I'm your sister, she said softly. Don't do that thing where you pretend everything's okay when it's not. So I stopped pretending. I told her everything. The corset. Ryan's request. The doctor's warning. The word coercion. She didn't interrupt, just listened. But I watched her face change. Confusion first. Then concern. Then something harder. By the time I finished, her hands were clenched around her coffee mug so tightly her knuckles had gone white. No, she said. Just that one word. Firm.
Certain.
He's not abusive, I said quickly. He doesn't hit me. He doesn't yell. Dana looked at me like I had just said something deeply, fundamentally wrong. There are more ways to hurt someone than hitting them. I felt my chest tighten. He's just being honest about what he likes. Stop, she said sharply. The word cut through me. Stop using his language. I blinked. He's trained you to defend him, she continued, her voice quieter now, but no less intense. Don't you hear yourself? I didn't answer, because I did hear it, and I didn't like it. She reached across the table and grabbed my hands. You are breaking your own body, she said, her voice trembling slightly. To keep a man who won't love you as you are. Tears burned behind my eyes. That's not a relationship, Mel. I shook my head weakly. It's not that simple. It is, she said. It's just not easy. I felt the first tear slip down my cheek. I love him, I whispered. We built a life together. What if no one else wants me? Dana's expression softened. Then you'll be alone for a while, she said gently. But you'll be whole. Her words settled into the space between us.
Heavy. Unavoidable.
Right now, you're not whole, she added. You're suffocating. And the worst part, the part I couldn't argue with, was that she meant it literally. After she left, the apartment felt different. Too quiet, too clear, like someone had turned the lights on in a room I had been living in the dark. I walked into the bathroom, stood in front of the mirror, and looked at myself. Really looked. The bruises, the indentations, the way my body curved around the rigid structure beneath my clothes. For years, I had told myself this was strength.
Discipline. Control.
But now, it looked like something else. Something closer to damage. Something closer to fear. I placed my hand against the front of the corset, felt the unyielding pressure beneath my palm, and for the first time, I didn't feel protected. I felt trapped. That night, I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay in bed, staring into the dark, listening to Ryan moving around in the living room. And for the first time, I let myself consider a possibility I had spent years avoiding. What if this wasn't love? What if it never had been? What if he hadn't fallen in love with me, but with a version of me that only existed because I was willing to hurt myself to maintain it? The thought didn't feel dramatic. It felt quiet. Terrifyingly quiet. Because once it existed, I couldn't unsee it. And once I saw it, I knew something had to change. I just didn't know yet if I was strong enough to be the one who changed it. I didn't leave Ryan in a dramatic moment. There was no shouting, no final speech, no cinematic version of myself suddenly becoming brave and unshakable. That's not how it happened. The morning I left felt ordinary, quiet, almost gentle. I woke up before him. The apartment was still dim, wrapped in that early silence that used to feel comforting. For a moment, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the tight, familiar pressure around my ribs. Then, my body moved before my mind caught up. I got out of bed, walked into the bathroom, closed the door, reached for the corset, like I always did. My fingers found the laces automatically. Muscle memory, routine, survival. But this time, I didn't pull. I just stood there, staring at it, at the object that had shaped my life for nearly a decade, at the thing I had once called protection, at the thing that now felt like a cage. Slowly, I looked up. At my reflection. No filters, no adjustments, no illusions. Just me. The bruises along my sides had turned a faded yellow. The deeper marks still traced faint lines across my skin. My body, soft in places, uneven in others, stood there without apology. For years I had looked at this version of myself and seen a problem, something to fix, something to hide, something to compress into something more acceptable. But that morning, another thought rose up. Quiet, but steady. I'm dying. Not metaphorically, not dramatically.
Literally.
I thought about the doctor's voice, about fractures, about organs shifting under pressure, about the way I couldn't take a full breath anymore. And then another thought followed it, clearer this time. I'm killing myself. To be loved by someone who doesn't love me. Something inside me went very still, like a decision had already been made somewhere deeper than fear. I let go of the corset, left it hanging there, and walked out of the bathroom without putting it on. When Ryan woke up, I was in the kitchen, making coffee, standing there in a loose t-shirt and soft shorts. No compression, no armor, just me. He stopped when he saw me. I watched his eyes do that thing again, that flicker. That quick, involuntary reaction.
Assessment. Discomfort. Disappointment.
You're not wearing, he started. No, I said calmly. I'm not. He waited, like he expected me to laugh, to correct myself, to go back and fix it. I didn't move. I can't do this anymore, Ryan. He frowned slightly. Do what? This, I said, gesturing vaguely between us. Us. He shifted his weight, confusion creeping in. I don't understand. I can't keep hurting myself so you'll find me attractive. His expression tightened. I never said you had to. I know, I interrupted gently. You've said that a lot. He opened his mouth again, ready to reach for the same words, preferences, honesty, standards, but I didn't let him. I can't breathe, I said simply. I have fractures in my ribs, And you asked me to keep wearing it anyway. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything we had said to each other in weeks. I'm moving out, I added. I'm going to stay with Dana for a while. That seemed to land. Shock flashed across his face. Like this possibility had never fully existed for him. Mel, you're overreacting, he said quickly. We can figure this out. I shook my head. No, we can't. I was just being honest. I know, I said again, softer this time. But your honesty is killing me. That stopped him. Not because he agreed, but because he didn't have a response ready. And for the first time, I didn't wait for one. I packed a bag. Not everything. Just the essentials. Clothes. Toiletries. The things I knew I would need immediately. Ryan stood in the doorway, watching, not stopping me, not fighting for me, not saying anything that sounded like love. And that told me more than any argument could have. Because if he had loved me, really loved me, he would have said something different. He would have said, stay. I'm sorry. You don't have to change for me. Your body is not the problem. But he didn't. He just watched. And I realized he had never been afraid of losing me. Because he had never truly seen me. I left, closed the door behind me, and for a moment, standing in the hallway with my bag in my hand, I felt nothing. No relief. No empowerment, just a strange, hollow quiet, like stepping off a ledge and not knowing what comes next. I've been staying with Dana for 3 days now. The first morning, I woke up and reached for the corset, out of habit, out of reflex, but it wasn't there. I had left it behind on purpose. And for a moment, panic rose in my chest, sharp and immediate, like I had forgotten something essential, something that held me together. I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself, really looked. The body I had been hiding for years, the body I had punished, controlled, compressed. And I said something out loud, something I had never said before. This is enough. Not, this is okay, but I'll fix it. Not, this is temporary. Just, this is enough. The words felt foreign,
Unstable.
but they didn't break. I cried that morning, not the quiet, controlled crying I had mastered over the years, but something deeper,
Messier.
like grief for the years I had spent hating this body, for the pain I had accepted as normal, for the love I had given to someone who couldn't return it fully. I'm not healed. I want to be clear about that. Some mornings, I still look in the mirror and see everything Ryan saw, every flaw he silently measured. Every reason he said he couldn't be attracted to me. Some nights, I still wake up with my heart racing, my hands searching for something tight enough to hold me together. But now, I stop. And I ask myself a question. Is this my voice or his? And most of the time, it's his. Dana has been patient. She doesn't lecture, doesn't push. She just sits with me, makes tea, reminds me, gently, that I'm not broken. And yesterday, I said something to her that surprised even me. He probably thinks he did nothing wrong. She nodded. Probably. He probably tells people I left because I couldn't handle his honesty. Probably, she said again. I looked down at my hands, and part of me still feels like maybe he's right. Dana reached over and squeezed my fingers. His story isn't your truth, she said softly. You know what happened to you. I nodded. Slowly. Because I did. There's something I'm starting to understand now, something I couldn't see when I was inside it. The corset never held me together. It made me smaller. Smaller so I could fit into someone else's expectations. Smaller so I wouldn't be too much. Smaller so I could be easier to love. But I was never meant to be small. And love, real love, was never supposed to require that.
Someone asked me recently if I regret the years I spent hiding.
I thought about it for a long time. I regret believing I had to. I regret living like my body was a problem to solve instead of a place to live. I regret every morning I woke up early just to become someone else before the world saw me. But leaving? No, I don't regret leaving. Not even a little. For the first time in years, I can take a full breath. It hurts sometimes. My ribs are still healing. My body is still learning what it means to exist without pressure, but the air fills my lungs anyway. Slowly.
Completely.
And that feels like something close to freedom. I'm 27 years old. I have PCOS. I have a body that doesn't always cooperate. I have scars, Some visible, some not. From years of trying to be someone else. But for the first time in my life,
I'm not hiding, and maybe that's what healing actually looks like.
not perfection, not transformation, just honesty. The kind that doesn't hurt you to keep. He wanted me to stay compressed, to stay contained, to stay acceptable. I took the corset off, and for the first time, I started to breathe.